Well, hello, good morning. I have stuff to tell you. I have been working, I'm driving to church, and I'm late, but I won't be there on time. Anyway, obviously if you're late, you won't be there on time. I have my trailer behind my car because I always end up driving by something that I wish I had my trailer for, and so I just bring my trailer, and I end up coming home with bags of leaves and many things. Phragmites. So let me tell you what I've been up to. So I have been working on sedge meadow teepee. You remember this summer? Well, sedge meadow teepee, started, like 20 years ago, and it's been through many phases. And this summer, last summer I cleaned it up and took away whatever, and made it nice and tidy. Well, this year I made garden beds there, and and as the summer went on, I was just passing by this really nice stand of phragmites, and I'll tell you more. But anyway, so this summer I was going to learn about sedge grass. Last year I learned about grasses because I have so many different kinds of grasses down at the moat. That whole area, it used to all be, I thought it was all canary grass. But anyway, when we created this way to get around in there, I was able to see what kind of grasses there were. So last year I learned about grasses. And I learned that mop grass, that really tall stuff with the big, pampas grass, that's really called phragmites. Anyway, but I have many kinds of sedge, which is carex, and they're a kind of plant that likes water or dampness. And so, so I was able to, I learned about thatching. First I was going to learn about sedge roots, because out west the natives have always used sedge roots to make these beautiful baskets. And so I thought that's what I wanted to do. But I dug and I couldn't find good roots. I didn't find what they were talking about. Nothing was easy about it. It was anyway, so I didn't think that that's a line of whatever I wanted to pursue. An avenue of inquiry. That's the cliche word. Anyway, so it was hot in the sun down there. The gardens did well, but I learned about thatching with my sedge, and I learned that my sedge is called Carex laciocarpa. That's the Latin name for it. It's easier, right? Mop grass. It could be anything. But anyway, so mop grass is not even like this. It's a very long one, and it comes in it's got several from the bottom, and they just come out and fan out, and they're quite tall. And as the canary grass is drooping down lower and lower, the sedge is standing up straight. Anyway, so I took the sedge, and I was watching thatching on some wilderness show video, and they showed how to thatch with this, and it was my same carex, my same sedge. So I thatched layers and blocked the sun out so we could sit there in the summer in the shade. But it didn't quite keep out the rain, so I kept thatching a little more here and there. And then I was talking to Anchor. You remember Anchor at Dean? She's the one that's got the basketry museum, and she's the one that taught me basketry. If you Google her name, Anchor at Dean, D-E-A-N, you'll find out all kinds of basketry stuff. Anyway, so she lives up the road, and she taught me tons of stuff. So anyway, so I went over to see her the other day, and I was telling her about the sedge and how time-consuming it was, and really, you had to stitch all of it, and it took you an hour to make nothing, whatever. It took a long time to make a layer wide enough that would go between the teepee poles. Anyway, but she said, well, what about using phragmites? That's what they thatch with in England. And so I went about finding phragmites and watching thatching videos, and so I did it all wrong because it was my first time. And I'll do it wrong for probably 5 times, and then I'll probably start doing it right. Or maybe it'll be more than that. Of course, there's many bundles, and you'd think I would have gotten it better by now. So the idea with thatch is that you cut it and you tie it together. You make a loop at one end of your rope, and then you winch it. You know, you put it around, you put it through, and you pull it as tight as you can. And then they did this in 5-foot long bundles. And then they and the bundles were 8 inches around. Well, you know, like that's a lot of phragmites. Even when you've got a big, long area of it, it takes a while. And it's heavy, and you have to take all the seeds off because you don't want to transport the seeds because it's an invasive species. However, I have now thatched sedge, meadow, teepee, the whole thing. And then where there was a breeze coming through, and because not all of the thatch, it might be this thick, but if I were to squish it all perfectly, it'd be a lot less. And so, because there's little bits of tangling, you know, and one's up above the other, and then the rest of them are not quite flat. And so you have, anyway, so I threw leaves on it. Bags and bags and bags and bags, probably 50 bags of leaves on it, maybe more. And all around the wetland, all around it, because I don't want any seeds to root, right? So if they can't get to the soil, they can't root. And I know there's many other ways that they could root with the leaves on the, anyway, but if some of the time I didn't take the seeds off, I admit it. And that is because by then my back was so bad. I find I can, if I stand and cut, I can cut and cut and cut and cut and cut. But in not very long, they're in the way. So I have to stop and I have to move them. And so I lay them down. And then I end up with all these piles. Now we're talking about these things that are probably 12 feet long. Some are shorter. Last year's, which are in amongst them that are not, like the year before, are pretty crushed. But last year's are broken. And some are standing straight and missing tops. They're not, and some are just tall with no leaves. But when I started harvesting them, I don't know how many days I've done this, how many times. I guess I've probably done it 5 whole days of cutting thatch. And some days I made more than 1 load. But you don't fill the load like you would fill it with manure or something, because they're bundled and so they're on an angle. So, you know, a huge arm load you could probably not get your arms around. That is probably a trailer. Anyway, so now inside the teepee, it's a whole different place. And from the road, because of the leaves and because the bottoms are sitting in the garden beds, you know, I have all these raised boxes, right? So I made all these raised boxes into which the poles of the teepee go, right? So they're built around the poles of the teepee. So the pole comes in at an angle in this rectangular box, right? And then the beans could climb up it. It was great. But the beans didn't want to climb up it. They wanted to go that way and back and everywhere else. And they wanted to make lots of babies and roots and shoots. And I tell you, that was one mess. But hey, there's a white duck with a black chest and upper part. I wonder what that was. There's a little white duck. Anyway, they must be migrating, right? They go way up north. They stop here on the way, and then they go away. We have them in the spring, and then we don't have the ducks in the summer. But then we have them again in the autumn. So I think that these are the bay ducks that go way up north, and then they come down. stop here, and then they're pushed by the weather, right? And so it's much colder up there now. They probably don't have much daylight at all anymore. I wonder how much they've got. It's fun. You know, it's interesting living in Canada. Oh, it's interesting living in Canada and thatching. And now, when I was 17, I lived with the Rasta, top of the mountain, or top of these hills in Cascade, near Cascade, Hanover, Jamaica. It was amazing. I was there for 6 months. I could stay for 6 weeks, and then I would go to Miami and then come back the next day. Or maybe I'd go all the way up to Georgia and then come back. But anyway, so 6 times, or 6 months, and I spent a lot of time in our thatched hut, right? We had a thatched hut, or they had a thatched hut, and I lived in it with them. So you know, when you're 17, it's really a formative time. Like, you're really learning and growing and figuring out what you don't think your parents know, or maybe they knew once but forgot. But anyway, so you're at this really wide open stage. So to do something for 6 weeks, I mean, it's like when kids go in the army at 18 and they're there for 4 years, and you know, you wouldn't think it would have such a huge impact 4 years out of my life at other times, you know, like when I was 45 or something. 4 years out of my life then would have just been kind of like being a travel writer. Like, I was a travel writer for about 6 years, and it didn't completely change my life. Like my time in Jamaica, that really changed my life. And so I can see that being a veteran, you know, veterans, I always think of Remembrance Day, you think of veterans, they're always these old geezers, right? Like, those are the veterans. But really, the veterans are the 18-year-olds, right? The 18 to 20-year-olds that just got back from Afghanistan. Those are the veterans. Like, and that's a whole different way of thinking about it. And my brother, he was a veteran. And anyway, just interesting. So this formative time when I learned about thatching, and I had occasion to rebuild the thatched building with them, was really a cool thing. It went up in a day, and I had something to say about the design. I had this spot where I could sit on a little triangular bench in a little corner where I could sit and watch the sunrise. And then the entrance was beside me. It was really nice. It was really cool. Or no, I think you had to come in and turn. Yeah, you had to come in my seat, and then you turn, and then you would go that way in. Anyway, so now I have a thatched hut. It's like a bush hut, or a Viking, or look up marsh Arabs, really. Google marsh Arabs, or on Pinterest or Instagram or wherever you go. But marsh Arabs are people in Iran that live in the phragmites, in the water. Like, the water is everywhere, and the phragmites is where the water isn't. And they built, I don't know, that's just what I can see from pictures. I really don't know anything about it. So, I should always preface with that. I do talk without knowing everything I think I know. So these marsh Arabs, they bundle the phragmites in these bundles that are like, I don't know, 15 inches around, and they bundle them every few inches, and of course they get really skinny at the top. And these are the corner posts, like they're the posts beside the door to which the wall is attached, which goes to the corner. And so there's one of these is at every corner. And then in between, you know, they've got sticks, and then they've got phragmites tied to the sticks, or just pushed into the ground. But if they push into the ground and they're this year's phragmites, they could root, because that's how I move my willow. I bet they would root. So I made this wall. Like, I thatched everything, and then I realized that the wind was coming straight in my open door, which like that. So I started building walls, and I built a passageway. So I built a wall that kind of it followed the teepee a little ways. And I started by sticking the phragmites in the ground every 2 inches, and then I twined them together. You know, you You take a piece of whatever. I use cedar bark, but you could use rope or whatever. You take it and you put it in half. You go around the first one and then you twist it. Then you go around the next one and then you twist it. And that's twining. So you just go around and that connected the whole thing together, and it holds it very perfectly, and it's a lot better than trying to weave like different ones on top of each other. That's not going to be tight. If you're going to weave and go in between all the time. Spiraling. Anyway, so I did that, and then I filled it with leaves. So I've got this baffle, this wall that's not connected to anything. But it's blocking, and then it's got a corner, and then where the teepee is angled, I've put in different things here to make it like that. I have this mop grass from the house. It's beautiful silvery mop grass, and I was supposed to be there 4 minutes ago. Anyway, so this beautiful silvery mop grass, and I cut it, and it's got these beautiful brown curls. They're so beautiful, and the color brown that I love is like the color my hair used to be, which is actually called red. But that to me is the most beautiful brown, and that's the color they are. So I stuck them in, and I made a kitchen. Did I tell you that? I made this little satellite teepee off the edge of this teepee, and so now I've connected the roof, so the roof comes down instead of going like that. It goes down like that, and it connects them, and then it comes up over the sides. And in it, I have a kitchen table, a round table, and a chair. It's tight, but it's there. And then I have a shelf a few inches above the table. And on there I have my peanut butter and dates, and the raccoons don't know I exist. Nothing has come there yet. So I probably shouldn't, I've got to not keep food down there, but temporarily. But I did put up a bird feeder and have one chickadee, and the chickadee comes, and it's nestled in that place where the kitchen, the teepee, and the baffle, and all those, and so I've got it hanging on a post in there, and one chickadee comes back and forth, and he chirps at me every time he gets there, and I talk to him, and he's so happy. He's so happy. He comes and he flits about, and if there's no food, like he comes where I am. I'll be sitting on another chair across the stream. Oh, and I cut all the grass all around there, and I put tons of leaves everywhere. So, and I cut some of those big sedge grasses out that you're always tripping over. Now you got a hole which got water in it, so I don't know what I should. Anyway, because church is on Zoom now, they turn off the Zoom for the prayer. For the sacrament. And so the whole thing starts closed, and the Zoom is turned off, the prayer is done, hymn sung, and then they do the hymn for the sacrament and pass the sacrament, and then we leave. It's very different, very good. Anyway, so I haven't missed sacrament, even though I'm late. Anyway, so now I have this incredibly, incredibly amazing place to play. Absolutely amazing. Anyway, I don't have my journal. I do have pens. I stocked up with pens, but my journal is full. And so if I have my journal out, I can't write. I can't take notes. Don't see one in the back. Okay. Well, this has really been fun, eh? My back. It's really important as you get old. Like, I'm 65 now. Ha ha ha. I did it. I'm 65. Anyway, so it's really important when you stand up that if your back hurts a bit, that you gotta somehow hold on to something and push yourself vertical. Don't go walking around with your back bent. Never, because that is really painful. You'll end up using a walker. Even a walker is good though if your back hurts. Look at this. What a cool grass. That's sedge, That's not my sedge, but it's a striped sedge. Man, I wonder if they let me cut that. That would be beautiful on in my thing. Okay, I gotta go. It's church. Okay, here was X.